All right, folks, welcome back to the Magnolia Shine podcast. This is our instant reaction here, early Saturday morning. We're reacting to week 2 of high school football in Mississippi. I'm Trellis Williams. Right here with me is Blake Levine. And Blake, man, we had some surprises here in week 2, and then we had some teams taking care of business, but just all around some good football.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely some surprises, but I guess that's what early season is for, right? Is to surprise you because if you assume that the teams are just going to be the same every single year, what good would high school football be? I would say, West Point beating Starkville is not a surprise because I'd love to touch that game first, but the way that they beat them is actually, I think, surprising. Because here's the thing, I think Starkville's still a really good football team. I think they're super high powered on offense. However, for West Point purposes, they might just be that good. They're the second best team in
Yeah.
the state right now, and they're going to play Tupelo here in a couple weeks. And that's going to be the game for arguably the number one spot in the state. And then also maybe, the ending of the season rankings. If West Point wants to be the number one overall team at the end of the year, they're going to have to beat Tupelo in that week. So that all of a sudden becomes like a midseason Super Bowl for those two teams in a fun way. West Point just throttled them, just absolutely throttled them. Kept them contained, ran the ball down their throat. I mean, Starkville, we knew their defense was a little suspect, but I was surprised that they held them under 20 points. Matter of fact, it was probably worse if they really wanted to keep the starters in there the whole time. West Point just definitely one of the 2, 3 best teams in the state. I mean, you can't argue it. The one thing I do want to say, though, is I was laughing because, people were tagging me all over Facebook because I picked Starkville. The funny part for me is what I was saying to them is don't diminish your win. Say how good Starkville is. Because it makes your
I know.
win way more impressive than when you say, "Oh, Starkville's weak offense. They're no good. They were overrated." Well, doesn't that diminish your win if you're West Point? No, you guys beat an overrated team. No, Starkville is good. They are good. Just West Point is just another level.
You know what's interesting though, man, is that I know that for Starkville fans though, they might question their team a little bit because you have a tough loss there. You get beat by over 30 points, and then the team you beat gets wiped off the field as Germantown beat Oak Grove
Ugh.
by a lot there. Kind of analyze that, Blake. I mean, that does kind of make you look at that first week game between Starkville and Oak Grove a little differently.
Yeah, tell me if I'm wrong. I believe they were up 30 plus points to zero at one point. It was like halftime. It was like 30-0. I think they got a safety too early in the game. What's going on with Oak Grove? Like, what's going on? Because I'll tell you what, if they played that game next week, I don't think Oak Grove loses like that. But are they just not good? Like, are they just not a good football team? And again, then that maybe speaks on Starkville. I'm hesitant. I'm not there yet. They're 0-2. They've lost 2 games on the road. I'm not there yet. But I don't know if Oak Grove's the second best team in the South anymore. That's definitely going to go to Ocean Springs right now. Ocean Springs is the second best team in the South, in my opinion, right behind Brandon. Although the way Brandon looked for a whole half where they didn't score a point in the first half against Madison, this may be a year where Ocean Springs has a shot. Now, we go back up to the North. The North is just superior to the South this year in 7A. I mean, look, we think about Madison, Starkville, Tupelo, Germantown. How about Clinton all of a sudden 2-0?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that North, those 5 teams, and then you even throw in Oxford too, who beat South Panola. Wow, wow, that's a heck of a district now. And remember, we were talking about, oh, can Germantown find a way into the playoffs? Well, if Clinton's going to be that, Germantown, Oxford, Madison, Starkville, oh, so one of those teams is going to miss the playoffs.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be a really good team missing the playoffs in that region, for sure. And another thing I wanted to say about Ocean Springs and Petal obviously played. Ocean Springs won 27-17. I picked Ocean Springs to win that game, so I thought Ocean Springs was gonna win. But I was actually impressed that Petal was able to compete with them on the road like that. I mean, it was not that bad of a game. 27-17, not that bad of a game. So I would say that Petal is still in the hunt.
Yeah, I think Ocean Springs actually went up like 27-7 at one point, so
Okay.
I don't know if that changed anything. But look, Petal was one of those teams I think I said to you. they're going to be one of those teams at the end of the season. They will not be the same team at the beginning of the season. That doesn't mean Ocean Springs won't be superior at week 8 or week 10, right? I mean, I know they're not going to play there, but if they met in the playoffs, but Ocean Springs, I look, I just so impressed with Ocean Springs. They're definitely a top 10 team. I don't know where in the top 10 I'm going to put them, but they're definitely in the top 10. And the Meridian game looks better. The Pedal game, look, I thought Pedal was going to win. I mean, I don't hesitate to say my point of view. I thought Pedal had the athletes to play with them, but Ocean Springs is just such a sound football team. They're they're really good. I mean, like I said, they have a shot to win the 7A South.
Yeah, and turning our attention a little bit, we see Warren Central. They're able to get out of that, get out of that rut that they were in, and they win 28-0 on the road against Pearl. And so I know that if you're a Viking fan, you got to be relieved and happy to see your team succeed on the field here. What does this say to Warren Central?
It says a lot because Pearl played with Madison for a whole half and
Yeah,
played him
they did.
tough. So then it makes me think, were they not prepared week 1? Like what? Or is Clinton just really that good? I guess. Warren Central, yeah. I don't think you and I, even after week 1 loss, felt like they were no longer a contender. We just didn't think they were the favorite anymore, right? Or am I
Yeah,
putting
I
words in
still
your mouth,
don't.
Trellis?
Yeah, I agree with you. I had them as the second best team. I don't quite have them second anymore, but I didn't think they were out of the top five.
Right, right. They were an 0-1 top 5 team, and now they stay in the top 5. And now all of a sudden, I think, okay, well, I mean, maybe if they got you on a good week, they're still not there. Their offense just doesn't seem dynamic. But that defense usually is always top tier. I'm still hesitant on Warren Central right now. I'm still just so disappointed in the first week of the season. I can't get it out of my mouth just yet. But still, 28-0, you beat Pearl. Obviously impressive win.
And then Hattiesburg and Laurel, they had their big rivalry game there. Hattiesburg able to beat them 31-18. Not an extremely decisive win. It doesn't seem, at least from the final score. I'm not able to really watch a lot of these games just because I'm doing a game myself. But did you see anything of the progression of how that game went? Because Hattiesburg now 1-1, but that's a question. That team's a question mark.
Yeah, still some sloppiness. Still some sloppiness with those schools. Laurel's going to struggle this year again. Hattiesburg, it feels like they're just one step behind. That doesn't mean that they're not going to win some games this year. It just means that they're probably a first or second round exit in the playoffs. I will say that game probably gets more hype up before the game, although I was kind of disgusted with some of the comments that I saw on social media. I'm not even going to get into them. Because it wasn't a very good look. I mean, you could go find them if you like. I suggest you don't. But I did think it was funny what the Laurel teachers did before the game, where they were looking at Hattiesburg's funeral, and so fun game. I guess I know where more to put Laurel, and Hattiesburg's probably a just above middle of the pack team in 6A, where yeah, they're going to win some games. They're not going over in district. They're going to compete every single week, but they're limited.
Yeah, and then we see we see MRA and Hartfield, and MRA just absolutely steamrolls Hartfield. So it's listen,
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah,
MRA's looking
yeah,
really good.
absolutely. Yeah, Hartfield tied the game. I think middle, like, or maybe even halftime, they tied the game. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to come down to the wire. MRA's passing offense, like I said to you, that's the best passing offense in the whole state. They can score with anyone, any given time, anywhere. MRA super impressive. At this point, I'm thinking about putting them number 1 in my rankings because while JA has been super impressive and they haven't done anything wrong, I just think the way MRA's playing, I'm like, whoa, okay. Now they've won by 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns against JDC and Hartfield. I mean, I know JDC lost to Summerall in overtime, so who knows what's going on with them. But still, the point is that they do those things and they beat the defending champs that way. they're not, a little bit better than Hartfield. I just think that they're better. Like, it's just a straight up, that's a better football team. If Hartfield's going to win, they're going to need a C game from from MRA and an A game from themselves. And it becomes a two-horse race with them in Jackson Academy.
Yeah, and
And
Jackson
MRA
Academy.
has more experience.
Yeah, Jackson Academy, they're one of those teams that's really good on paper, really good team on paper. And now I'm sure that they're going to be a good team on the field, but we just haven't really seen them play anybody that we can actually make the judgment call yet. So we'll have to postpone any judgment on them until a later time. We see D'Iberville and Gaucher. D'Iberville wins that one by a lot, 42-17. And down there on the coast, D'Iberville gets it done.
Yeah, I made this point on my TikTok. I made this point on social media. Wow, the coast, really impressive. Now, obviously, they had some teams lose this week, but I think West Harrison's one of those dark horse teams on the coast. And, Poplarville pulls it out late against Stone. But for
Wow.
D'Iberville, that's
Yeah.
that's a good win for D'Iberville. Gaucher was in the championship last year, and I know that they're class below them, or I guess two classes below them, right? Gaucher's still in five, or they move up to six. I keep always forgetting with some of these teams across the state. But
I,
either way, a class or two below them, and, still, I think D'Iberville likes that win. I mean, that feels like, okay, well, could D'Iberville get into that two slot because Biloxi loses to Holmes County Central in week one? Obviously, Gulfport. I mean, that's gonna be the game for them. And then, why am I blanking on the other team? I'll think of the other team. But D'Iberville, they might be able to make the playoffs.
yeah, so that's a good look for them. And then we also saw Terry and Canton, which was in Canton. That's a game that I was doing, obviously, doing the Terry games. 33-13 win for Terry. Terry was without their star running back. They had 5 touchdowns the week before. They're able to get it done. 33-13 win on the road there, and so they moved to 2-0 on the season there.
Yeah, I told you I'm done picking against them. And all the hate I got on social media. But hey, I feel like this is the game you should break down. You had your eyes on it.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I gotta say I was impressed. Obviously, since I do the broadcast and I'm a fan, but just by looking at it, I was like, okay, you're without Rondé Baker. How are you gonna do here? And they just showed their other options. They're able to get it out to their receivers. They were able to get a couple interceptions. They were able to have a kickoff return for a touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns. They showed off their sophomore backup running back, and he did well. And so, Terry just showed that they're more of a versatile team. And so once Rondé comes back, and you hope that he's all good and healthy at the end of the season, you have to see what that team's looking like. But that's always the big question is the health of the players.
Yeah, but outside of Picayune in the South, I don't see a reason why Terry couldn't be playing for that South State title possibly.
Listen, it's a possibility, and I would say in the 3 years that Terry has been in this version of 6A, because obviously they used to be in it with Brandon and Pearl and Northwest Rankin and them, which was just so tough. But ever since the new 6A, Terry's been that third team behind West Jones and Hattiesburg. This year, this seems like their best shot in these first 3 years because West Jones and Hattiesburg, they seem a little bit vulnerable. We saw West Jones, I believe they won 27-20, I think, over Northeast Jones. So you wonder, what are the Mustangs looking like over there? And then Hattiesburg, a lot of talent on Hattiesburg, though. So you still have 2 tough teams there. So we'll have to see how that looks later in the season.
Yeah, and can I make a note? Because I know we're not going to touch on this at all for the most part. I mean, I'd love to, but it's just at some point we run out of time. Salem High School, just outside of Tylertown, Mississippi.
Yeah.
They win again. So after 49 straight losses, they are now 2-0. They beat Wilkinson County. I just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah, that's listen. It's cool because I saw on Facebook their coach. I don't remember what his name is. Do you know what his name is? But their coach.
I don't know.
I've seen his Facebook page. I know that it means a lot to him to have this turnaround. I mean, that's you got to say, even if they lose the rest of their games, that's a turnaround. I mean, 49 straight games. You start off 2-0. That listen, you weren't beating anybody before.
Well, the one win that they had was a COVID win. That was the last win that what they had was a game that they didn't even play on the field. So my
Oh wow.
point is I think it was something like 5 years since they had won on the field where the game wasn't, forfeited by the other side. Not that they maybe couldn't have won that game anyways. They had beat that school the year before in Sacred Heart. But that just it builds on itself, right? Like, okay, kids start seeing winning. Maybe a basketball kid that wasn't coming out for football goes, "Oh wait, I want to be a part of this."
Yeah. No, for sure. So that's pretty cool to see there from Salem. Then we see Noxubee County get another win over Kemper County. Wasn't close. Noxubee County takes that win. They move to 2-0 on the year. Looks like they'll have another good season.
Yeah, they're the best team in 3A. Choctaw beats New Hope. New Hope a lot better than we thought they were going to be. I picked New Hope because I took a gamble on the upset. However, New Hope a lot better than we thought. But Choctaw still really good. But Noxubee is the overwhelming favorite, and which is crazy, right? You lose Camario Taylor, and then you become more of a favorite than you were last year.
Yeah.
But
Well, then,
hey! But at least you still have some blood on. At least you still have some blood on the team.
for sure, for sure. You have and this is, I guess this is the probably the headliner game, but we haven't really discussed it at all yet in detail. Brandon and Madison Central. And so we kind of touched on Brandon a little bit. Brandon wins this game 17-7. It was 7-0 at the half. Madison Central had the lead. But Brandon able to take it in the second half, get control, had a pick six, which really changed the game. 17-7 finish. Brandon getting the win, and that was a much-needed win. They really didn't need to start off 0-2.
Yeah, you picked against them, your title team. You picked against them, but I will say it's probably good for them to be on the other side of the pick six this time. After the week before. I learned a lot about both teams. One, that Brandon has some resiliency, right? You get your butt kicked against Tupelo, and now you're down 7-0, and you're thinking, oh boy, what? Like this again? Like, what are we doing here? Like, we can't score against these top level teams. Then they come back, they show the resiliency, they put up 17 straight. If you're Madison, though, you walk away from this game thinking, okay, like we're there, we're right there. We blew the game, we're upset, but in the big picture, if we were to upset Tupelo, we could beat Brandon in a championship. Why not? We're up 7-0 at halftime. We just got to finish the game. We got to not give up 7 points on our offense. And so there are some positives for Madison. Now, you don't feel good after the game, but I think in the big picture there are some positives. More positives for Brandon, right? More positives for always the team that wins.
Yeah, and I know for Madison Central, even though they can take some positives from it, and I know that they're a younger team, and so you would imagine that they'd get better over the course of the season. But the thing is, though, is that losing at home to Brandon, as good as Brandon is, and as much as that doesn't show that they're a bad team, obviously, that's got to leave a bad taste in your mouth if you're the Jaguars.
I think it does, but I hope the coaches see it in a bigger picture, which is this is a non-district game, and we figured out that we can play sloppy and still be in a game with Brandon. Because Madison's thinking to themselves, we scored 7 points in this game. That's not us. That's not us, right? So, if the positive outlook is we're not going to score 7 again against them, but we liked how our defense played.
Yes, and look, man, we had the games there. South Panola taking another loss, and I know that Oxford is 7A opponent, tough opponent there, but they lose again. Only were able to muster up 13 points. It just doesn't seem like this is South Panola's year, but we will see. We'll have to see them play against some teams.
Well, especially because DeSoto then lost to Lake Cormorant, and then you're like, oh boy, where South Panola, just going to be a tough season. Just going to be a tough season for them. There's nothing more I want to say on that because I hate talking too bad about a school, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, and it's tough because you have a team that has such big legacy, and so it makes you want to talk about them. So that when they have a down year, it's like they get a little bit more criticism than maybe another school would get in their down year just because of their, just because of the tradition and the nature of that. But Blake, look, man, those were the kind of the games that we were talking about going into the week. Interesting week 2 of football. Week 2 is a little bit more illuminating than week 1. Week 1 is just like, okay, pop, pop, pop. But now you're able to see which teams did well week 1, how are they doing week 2. Which team impressed you the most in week 2 that you didn't know about in week 1?
Oh, that I didn't know about, because West Point was the most impressive, right? Because of how they beat
Yeah.
Starkville, right? What I didn't know, what I didn't know, if someone would have told me Germantown was going to be up 4 or 5 touchdowns
That's what
on
I was going to
Oak
say.
Grove, yeah, right. That's insane. Shannon up at halftime against Louisville. That was really, now Louisville ends up winning the game, but Shannon being up at halftime, I was like, whoa, okay. 4A, we thought it was just a collision course for Poplarville and Louisville. I don't know if I might put Columbia number 1. I started thinking to
maybe.
myself, ooh,
Yeah.
okay. So all of a sudden, I think I've learned that Columbia might be the best team in 4A.
Well, here's the thing, man, and I know that it's hard. It's almost comparing apples and oranges sometimes, but not really. They're both football teams. But, Columbia barely beat Hartfield. And MRA just hammered Hartfield. And so, would you think that Columbia would be in that level with Louisville?
Yeah, I think if Columbia played MRA, it would be closer. I think Columbia is just so well coached, so put together, and they got a coach they love and Bilderback. I think they were in the championship game the last time Bilderback was there. They obviously lost to Louisville. They felt like some calls didn't go their way, although I'm not a blame the ref person. And I
Yeah.
just think that Columbia looks good. Poplarville, I, I don't know about Poplarville yet, right? Because I don't know about Stone. I think Stone's good. I think Poplarville's good. I just don't know until we get into those, until they play someone maybe a little more up north. I'm not there. I don't know.
Yeah. And I was impressed with Stone's ability to stay in the game. Obviously, I picked them, so I was wrong on that. But it was 22-21, very close game. And Stone showed good. They were very competitive in it. I would think that Stone would be a team that might be able to compete a little bit in 5A.
Yeah, absolutely. Kosciuszko goes and throttles Florence. They blow them out.
Saw
And
that, yeah.
a lot of people thought Florence in the South was, one of the top teams. So, okay. Stone, yeah, I think Stone absolutely has a shot.
Yeah, so listen, week 3 will be next week, and we're going to do our full analysis here on Monday of week 2. So we're going to go through our picks and compare, see who won the week. Unfortunately, I have an idea of who I think won the week, but we'll see on Monday. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We'll also talk about, listen, we got college football today. You want to do a little preview of a little bit of college football today? We did talk about it a little bit. We got at 4 o'clock, you got Jackson State, Southern Miss. I believe 2:30 is Ole Miss, Kentucky, and then at 6:30 is Mississippi State, Arizona State. Those are the 3 games we're really looking at. And obviously, we made our picks. But, man, listen, should be some good football today.
All right, go have fun today.
Oh, yeah. All right, folks, look. It's the Magnolia Shine Podcast. We'll see you on Monday. Tune in live at 11 a.m. It'll be myself alongside Blake Levine. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button to the Magnolia Shine Podcast. I'm Charles Williams. We out.